I am here today with Carri Fimple. Carri and I have known each other for about 12 years now. I met Carri as a client. So we started out as that relationship as a client. And then a while later, you became a licensed real estate agent. We've worked together in that capacity as well. And now you own a transaction coordinator business and we've actually worked together in that capacity as well. So we've hit it client, agent, and transaction coordinator. We've pretty much covered all the bases.
Yeah, been fun.
Yeah. And let me say this now for those of you that don't make it to the end, if you're an agent and you're looking for a transaction coordinator, I'll vouch for Carri. She's fantastic. You should reach out to her if you need some assistance. She does a great job. So, what we're going to talk about today is the Johnson County, Kansas tax appraisals that just came out. I've seen some stuff on social media, so it's a hot topic for some people right now. So I figured this would be a good time to chat with Carri and get some background and get some advice on how to deal with that if you feel like your tax appraisal is too high. So let's talk a little bit about your background before you became a transaction coordinator and before you became a real estate agent. You actually worked in the Johnson County appraiser's office, right?
Yes, I did. For 5, almost 6 years, I was at the county appraiser's office in customer service, helping people appeal their values.
So that was kind of what you did. People would come to you when they wanted to do an appeal. So you're very familiar with the process. And then when you left Johnson County, you went to work for a private company, right, who does tax appeals nationwide.
I went to the private sector for a company that does valuation and tax appeal across the nation, mostly commercial properties, but we help people with personal property, equipment, and their residential properties as well.
So you've got a pretty deep background in the whole property tax appraisal or tax appeal process. So 1st of March is when Johnson County mails these out, or roughly around the 1st of March.
Yes, every year, 1st of March or the 28th or 29th of February, depending on what day of the week it falls on. Pretty much,
Oh,
they get it mailed out, and then you have 30 days from that mailing date, whatever the date is stamped on there that they mailed it on, 30 days from that date to file your informal appeal.
okay. So this is time sensitive. If you do want to file an appeal, you've got to get it done basically before the end of March. And you need to probably check that date stamp just to make sure you don't miss it by a day or two. And so let's say people take a look and they're just like, what they're saying my house is worth. You feel like it's just not accurate. And I told Carri, I checked mine. My value went up a little over 5% last year. And what they say with my tax appraisal is probably pretty close. But based on our conversations, there are some people out there that their properties really are overvalued by the tax,
Yes.
by the county appraiser.
Yeah. Johnson County is really sophisticated in their systems and in their processes. And for the most part, they are fairly accurate with their assessments. We don't like it when they're high because that means our taxes are high.
Right.
But for the most part, most people are gonna be right about right on with what the appraisal is. If your home hasn't been changed or updated or, you haven't done anything to improve it in 10, 15 years, you probably have a good chance of getting your valuation lowered because they are comparing homes to sales. Most people that sell their home do a lot of work to get it ready for the market, to present it in the best light right before they sell it. So you're going to have some superiority in those that you're going to want to point out if you're going to appeal.
Right. And so we were talking about this. This is March of 2024. The information or the data that the county uses as far as comparable sales, they go back to the previous year. So January 1 of 2023. And then you said till maybe October-ish of 2023.
Right. Because they have to have the time to get all of the stuff, the modeling and done in the system. They kind of have a cutoff of mid-September of
Okay.
the data that they look at to pull in when they're evaluating and calculating your valuation. So if you're thinking of appealing and you can find some really good recent sales that are comparable to your home after that September cutoff, it's likely that the county wasn't able to use them. So that would be a little note there. January 1st, 2023, any sales in there that you can find are going to be what you want. If it happened after January 1st of 2024, it can't be used as evidence in your appeal.
The tax appraisal that comes out in 2024 is based only on 2023 sales.
Correct.
Right. And probably sales up through roughly mid September. And so if you or your agent can locate some comps that sold in November or December, those are going to be comps that the county did not use. As you mentioned before we started recording, those are typically slower times of the year, November and December. I know personally I've had buyers who buy their house in that time frame and didn't have to overpay because there wasn't quite as much competition going on. So those may be some good comps to look at.
Yeah,
Yeah.
can't hurt to go in there and try and find something, try and flush something out.
All right. So let's say I think my property is overvalued. There's an appeal process, and part of it is time sensitive. So that's what we're going to talk about first. If I think they're just way off, then what's my next step?
Okay, so the notice of value that you got in the mail that you probably opened and were like, what? The back of that form is the appeal form. You fill it out, send it in. They will get in touch with you and they'll let you know when your hearing time is and all that kind of stuff. And in the time between when you file the appeal and when you go for your hearing, you're going to want to collect all the evidence that you can. Pretty important thing to do is print out your property record card, which is available on the Johnson County website. You can go into their office and the gals up front should be very helpful, and print the property record card for those comps that they used as well. Compare those with a fine tooth comb. It's going to tell you the number of bedrooms, bathrooms, plumbing fixtures. Look for square footage in the basement and square footage in the above grade. There's a difference in the dollar amount allocated to basement and above grade. You can kind of work those numbers out, and a lot of times they're wrong because they don't go into your basement when you finish your basement. They look at permits, they look at previous history, that sort of thing. Just take that time to collect all the evidence that you can. Get your packet into your hearing officer a few days in advance so that they have time to review it. And then you just do your appeal and you wait for your results in the mail. I will say there are 3 different options for how you want to have your appeal heard. You can just submit your evidence packet and have them review it and send you a letter, a hearing based on evidence, or you can do a telephone hearing. It's about a 20-minute phone call. They call you, you talk about the packet that you submitted, and then you wait for your letter in the mail with your results. Or you can do an in-person where they set you a time and you go there and you talk to them in person and all this. And I will say that when I worked there, there was really no weight, given to either one of those. Any of them work just fine.
Okay. And so your preference is, I think you told me the telephone.
I really think it's the most efficient. And from working at the office, the appeal season is hectic and they have to stage it in a whole different room and set up little cubicles, and the appraisers are back and forth and down. And it's an agitating day for everyone. So you might get better results if you don't make them go down to that room and talk to you face to face.
Right. So step one is just to send in the form, whether it's the actual USPS sending it the old fashioned way or going on the website and filing the appeal on the website. So that gets it started.
You just initiate the process. Yeah, the form, if you don't have the one that they mailed you, you can print it online. You can go into the office, and any way you want to do it, just get it filed by the deadline.
Right. You don't have to have your case all squared away when you initiate the appeal. The initiate the appeal just gets it started. Then you have time to go gather your evidence to support your position that the property is overvalued.
Yes.
Okay. So that's considered an informal appeal, this first one that we just talked about, whether it's you just send them your stuff and wait to hear from them, or you send them your stuff and then you have a phone conversation, or you do it in person. That all falls under the umbrella of the informal
The
appeal.
informal appeal, yes.
Okay. So what happens if you are unsuccessful at the informal appeal?
The result letter that you get from the county informal level, the back of that is going to be your small claims of the Board of Tax Appeals level. And it's likely that you'll get a better result or an additional result by filing into small claims. Pay attention to the feedback that the appraiser's office gave you about your evidence and take the time to create a better case. And the small claims level is an independent panel. The state hires them to come up and they sit as a panel and they hear the arguments of the county and they hear the arguments of you, and they take both evidence packets and review it and then go do their thing and send a results letter.
So that's literally like small claims court. I mean, you're there, somebody from the appraiser's office is there, and then there's people listening to both of you, and then they're going to make the decision.
It's a really
Okay.
cordial and usually not contentious experience. And they have a telephone option for that as well. So you don't have
Okay.
to physically go to a building. And really, the telephone options are convenient and efficient for everybody. And they're not going to give you a better result because you went in person.
So you can do that even if they did reduce your value. If you don't think it was sufficient, then you can go to this step that we just talked about and trying to get an additional reduction.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
From your experience, what percentage of people who appeal actually get their values reduced?
It's a surprisingly high number. At the county level, the reductions usually are not large, but a lot of people do see somewhat of a reduction when they appeal.
Okay.
And that's why I say always take it to the small claims level if you think there's additional savings to be had, because you'll often see additional results at the small claims level. Percentage wise, it'd be hard to say. I've been out of hands on working in the industry for, oh gosh, 8 years. I'd say 15% at least would get some kind of a reduction.
Okay. All right. And is there typically a limit on the reduction that you'll see at that first step?
The appraiser's office does have targets that they try to meet, and nobody likes to admit that they were wrong. So they try to get it to where it's enough to appease the public, the property owners, and that's kind of the gist on that. They like to make people happy because they don't want the voters to be unhappy, but they also don't want the commissioners to be unhappy. And there's tax dollars that have to be collected to pay for the roads and to pay for the schools and to pay for the fire stations. So,
Generally speaking, the county appraiser knows what the real estate market overall did. Let's just make up numbers. If the market sale price was up 5%, then they kind of have a target to shoot for. Is that right?
yeah, yeah. If our local market is seeing a 6% appreciation, then they kind of adjust numbers to make their appraisals fall in line with that 6% appreciation.
So, in other words, they're going to look for comps that support a roughly 6% increase.
Really going to look for the properties that are going to support the value that they want to achieve.
Right.
And that's not nefarious. When we're listing agents, we also look for the comps that support the value that we want to achieve. But again, it's a mass appraisal system. And when you're doing a mass appraisal, every single house doesn't appreciate at 6%.
Correct.
So,
Yeah, so like you mentioned earlier, when you're looking at homes that have sold, oftentimes those sellers have made some improvements, even if it's just cosmetic. They've put some time and effort and money into getting the property prepped to sell. So if yours is just sitting there with the same paint, same carpet, same everything that it had 10 years ago, 15 years ago, then yours may not have gone up by the same percentage that these homes that have sold have increased.
and a good thing to take note of that January 1st date. If you're in the process of a project in your house and you've got a bathroom torn up on January 1st, take some pictures of that and file an appeal. Because if you're a 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom house and you've got one of your bathrooms torn up for a remodel, you're really a 2 bedroom house, right?
Oh,
That's
interesting.
that's a
Yeah.
significant savings.
Yeah. So we've talked about the step one, the local informal, step two, the small claims. And is there a third option?
There is.
What's
There's
that?
the state level of the Board of Tax Appeals. And you can file into that one, but it's a much longer process. It'll take months before you get your hearing with them. And by the time you get your hearing and find a result, it is going to be into the next year's tax year. So you're going to want to likely file another appeal for next year, and you'll end up with multiple years at the state level. In my experience, you're never going to need to go there unless there's something really going on with your house.
Okay.
But sometimes there is really something going on with your house. I personally, when I worked at the appraiser's office, filed an appeal on my own house because I was looking at my information and they had some wreck finish in my basement. Well, my basement was a crawl space that had been dug out by whoever owned it 70 years ago. And at some point, maybe there was some finish, but for me, there was just the water and a trap door in my living room. They'd cut a trap door to put a spiral staircase in at some point. So I filed the appeal and no, there's no wreck finish. And there's actually a potential death hazard in my living room. And so I got my value reduced. Now they'd had that wreck finish on there for years and years and years. At that point, you can file a tax grievance and that goes up to the state level. And you can file it for, I believe it is 3 years back. And so then they would look at those 3 years and take that square footage off and refund the taxes paid for those 3 years.
Okay. So most people are going to do step one.
Yes, always go to step one if you think your value is too high.
Right. Yeah. And then some of those will take it to step two.
If you really believe your value is too high,
Right.
take it to
Yeah.
step two.
And then probably a very small percentage of those people would actually go to the state level.
Yeah, those are mostly catastrophic. New construction where they did it wrong and put bad stucco, and so everything was full of mold and
Oh,
rotten within 2 years. That goes to the state level. Classifications are wrong, go to the state level. Agricultural, commercial, and residential, that type of classification. If you've got acreage, hay some of it, let it grow for a year, and you can get an agricultural classification on that. But that's really not the most common thing either. We're talking about people that just live in a subdivision.
right. So it would be helpful for people if they perhaps go to their real estate agent who helped them buy the house. If you don't have one, reach out. I can introduce you to one and have your agent look at some comparable sales and see if they can find comps that are more representative of the actual value of your property.
Yes, your realtor, if you've got a relationship with your realtor, is a wonderful resource in appeal season.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can't just go in saying, hey, this can't be right. There's no way my house is worth it. You can't just go in because you feel like it's too high. You've got to have some evidence or some data to support the fact that it should be worth less.
Yeah, you really should treat it as if it were kind of a court case. You got to have something to back it up because they set their value and they believe in it.
Yeah. Yeah. So your agent can maybe help you find some more accurate comparable sales. And like you had mentioned, which I think I had never really thought of, if you haven't done updates for a while, then that alone might be something to support a lower appraised value.
Yeah. And if you haven't painted and your walls are dirty, and if it's just little stuff that you've just not been keeping up with the general aesthetic upkeep, it's not going to have as much weight as if there's actual deferred maintenance and defects. But even dated can get you a little bit of a reduction.
So I can't just let my yard grow for a couple of months and take a picture of 2 foot tall grass. That's not going to cut it since that's pretty cosmetic.
That's pretty cosmetic. Now, if you had an acre and you let half that acre grow and put a bale of hay out there and took a picture and sent it in, you might be able to get something. But for the most part, no, you wouldn't
Okay.
see enough savings to offset the $200 the city's going to charge you when they come and mow it for you.
Okay. You said that the three comps that the county picks are on your form that you get in the mail.
Yes.
And so if it were me, I'd probably get online and find those properties and take a look at the photos, maybe see,
Yeah.
is their kitchen look like it's been redone in the last few years, bathrooms, that sort of thing.
Hmm.
And if you find that all three of them had recent renovations, et cetera, and yours hasn't, then that would be your case.
100%. Yeah. If
Okay.
your neighbor's house, if you're comparable, sold, had granite, and you've got laminate countertops, you've got to make adjustments for that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah. And they don't have that information when the county's doing it.
No, they don't go inside your house, and they really
Right.
don't visit your property physically, except for once every 6 years, I think. Statutorily, they've got to make an actual physical visit to the property is with every 6 years. But they now can do it mostly with aerial footage
Yeah.
and Google Earth with
Okay.
technology. A lot of times they don't even step foot on your property.
Right. Is that why the photos get updated every now and again? When you go to the county website, it's like, okay, yeah, that's a
It
different
is, yeah.
picture. Okay.
They've got to have a recent front elevation picture, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Anything else that I didn't ask you that I should have?
I will say, if you miss the informal appeal season, which is what happens with your notice of value in March, you can still appeal with the tax payment in December. You can file an appeal on each tax year one time, only once, but you can do it at the beginning of the year or the end.
Hmm.
So November 1st, I believe, is when tax bills are mailed out. Anytime after that, you can file a payment under protest, and then it's the same process from there. It's just a different time of year to give everybody a chance.
So really, we have two chances. We've got essentially till around the end of March when the appraisals come out.
Mhm.
And then we've got in December when basically the actual tax bill is out and taxes are due. So
Yes.
that's your second choice. All right. And what'd you say? You pay them under appeal? Under
It's
appeal?
a payment under protest
Under
appeal.
protest. Okay.
So it's a PUP if you wanna
Okay.
think of it
PUP.
as a cute thing, yeah.
Payment under protest.
So you do have to pay at least the first half of your tax bill. And if you have a mortgage and an escrow account, then you just file the paperwork because your mortgage and your escrow account is gonna pay those for you. The deadline to get those filed is December 20th. That's the deadline to pay the first half of the tax bill.
Okay. And so does that get done when taxes are paid or after taxes are paid?
That's when taxes are paid. The payment under protest appeals typically are heard late November and through December. That's when the
Okay.
county will hear those
Okay.
cases. Not nearly as many payment under protests get filed, so it's
Okay.
a less stressful appeal
Yeah.
season.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't even know that was an option. So maybe a lot of other people don't. But
A lot of people
also,
don't.
yeah, I'm guessing there's people that they see their appraisal in March, or maybe they don't, but then they see their tax bill. It's like, oh, I don't like that tax bill, which is a result of the appraisal that came out back in March.
In reality, the people that file the informal appeal level with their valuation notice are typically more friendly than the people who are filing the payment under protest at the end of the
That's
year because they're filing for different reasons, right? Like right now you see what you 20% or what or 5% increase in my value. Well, that's kind of a random number in your head. But if you see $5,000 from a tax bill, you see an actual dollar amount increase in your tax bill.
got it. Got it. Okay. Anything else?
I think that might be about it. Did you have anything else?
I think we've pretty much covered it. And people have questions, so reach out to me, and then I'll answer as best as I can. And then if we need some more detailed information, we'll find somebody that can answer those questions. But no, I appreciate your time. That's been valuable. It's good information for people to know. And again, I appreciate you doing this on short notice. It is kind of time sensitive for the people who want to get their, what's it called, protest or appeals in
Yeah.
by the deadline here towards the end of
March 27th is the deadline for this
March
year.
27th. Okay.
March 27th.
All right. If your value's too high, get your appeals in and then start building your case, right?
That's right.
Okay. All right, Carrie, I appreciate the time and we will talk to you soon.
Okay. Thank you so much, Greg.